And now it's Deborah Cobelt Live and the Little Italy podcast.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today on Debora Cobelt Live, also our Little Italy podcast. And I have such a treat for you today. I'm so honored to present to you Debora Medici-Guetta. Welcome, Debora.
Hi, nice to be here.
Oh, absolutely thrilled. Debora is an artist, an entrepreneur, a photographer, philanthropist, and women's advocate. And behind her, Debora's in her studio in Los Angeles. Behind her is just some of the artwork. I was, fortunate enough to visit you at your studio. I guess I was there last week, right? And you really took the time to walk me through the galleries and explain to me, what we were looking at, your process, all of it, and the entire evolution of your artwork when you started up doing this again. So what I'd like to do is I always love to take it way back, right? Who was Debora as a child? Where were you born? And was this something you always envisioned doing?
So I was born in Rome, in Italy, and I was raised there. I studied after I graduated in high school. I always had the feeling that I needed to see the world. I wanted to see what was outside my community, my life in Italy. I felt very restricted. I always had envisioned traveling and exploring and just know what was out there. And I had studied languages because that was kind of my mom's dream, to learn languages and travel the world. But I always wanted to study art. Definitely study languages helped a lot because it helped with the travels and communicating. And therefore, in my 20s, I left home. I lived 1 year in England first, in London, and then from there, I came to Los Angeles. So it was a long journey, a different culture, lots of experience. It was just great to learn something different, something that I always envisioned, and here I am, I'm doing it. Definitely America and the culture was very different, but very exciting to live a different life.
Were your parents also artists? Where did you get this from? Because, your art is the way you look at the world and the way you capture that in your art is incredible. And then actually, I want to get into your entire, journey of how you even started up again. But go ahead. What were they like?
My parents, growing up, so I grew up in Rome. Then between the years 7 and 9 years, we moved to North Italy next to Venice. But when I was 9 years old, my parents broke up. It was a pretty difficult journey through the divorce. And we went back to Rome with my mom. And that's where, I grew up after the divorce. I mean, divorce lasted forever, but it was a traumatic experience. And my mom is a very skilled tailor. Like, she's amazing. She has golden hands. She could create anything. But growing up, I was just like kind of in my own world, kind of escaping also the trauma and, the difficulties of those years. So I was always drawing. I was always into myself and creating in my own world. So it was more like, I guess it was like within me.
So you come to Los Angeles and you're wide-eyed and you're thinking, wow, right? I feel like anything's almost possible here. You must be saying to yourself. Then what did you study? What did you do to suddenly transform yourself into the artist that you've always been since you were a kid, really?
Right. So I always wanted to study art. And so when I came here and I went to college and the first thing I did, I took all art classes, illustration, graphic design. I took them all. And that's how I connected myself with the art again. Because my studies in Italy were mostly in languages. I studied French, English, German, Latin. So it was mostly learning and study the culture of in other languages.
Yeah.
I had this possibility when I came here. I took it right away, and I was immersed in more of an artistic environment.
Yeah. So you must have been hanging out in all the art circles here too, right? Because what a fabulous time to be here. You know, such an emergent time for so many artists, right? Musicians, artists, photographers, right? What did you gravitate toward first as an artist?
As an artist, I always liked illustration and painting. I was like more of a fine art. It was only later on, after I married, after my first two children, that I went back and actually talking to Thierry, my husband, I was sharing with him. I was like, I really would love to get back into doing something more. And he said, go back to photography. And that's what I did. And it was just late in my 30s when I went back, and I loved photography immediately. And I went into photojournalism. Actually, that was one of my loves, to just document street and life, people. But I had two young children, so.
Right. And that's tough. I know what that's like. I had three young children under the age of 5. And as much as I thought I could do it all, it was nearly impossible. I did the same thing. You know, I was on a network news station every night. And then all of a sudden I thought, I can't. It's too difficult. I don't even know these little kids anymore. So like so many women, right, we took a step back from what it was that we loved. Of course, the children as well. But I mean, our careers, what gave us purpose as ourselves, right? So we took a step back. What was that like for you during that time?
It was very challenging. During the time, I didn't really realize. And I think, generally speaking, I don't think you do realize. You just go, go, go. You have children, you have the husband, you have the house, you have the community, you have the friends. You just go, go, go. Until, at least for me, one day I woke up, like it was about 2010. I woke up one day, and I still remember that day. I woke up and I was like, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And I couldn't find an answer, because my answer were like, oh, I'm the mother of, I'm the wife of, I'm the friend of, I'm the sister, I'm the daughter. And then I would think of all the expectation, and now I had to deliver to that. And then I was like, where is the rest of me? Where is it? And so I took out myself to start my journey through rediscovery and realignment with who I truly am. And
please.
And I think this is applied to so many women. We kind of get lost into the expectation that society puts on us, and then we forget ourselves by doing so.
It's very important to speak about this. I was in the same position. I kind of went down a dark hole, feeling, desperate. Like, how will I ever find myself back out of this? And you just have to wake up one day and figure something out. If you're an artist like you are, a photographer, you just maybe pick up the camera and do something. Same with me. I started writing. And from there, you just start not really over again, but you pick up from what you had, and then something magical becomes almost even better, right? Don't you think? What do you think? Tell me your experience.
Absolutely. So this seed was growing into me because I had realized that there was, I don't want to call it an issue, but there was an awakening.
Yeah.
And therefore it was right away, because I'm always a problem solver. So I'm like, okay, how do I do this? And truthfully, it was a huge challenge, because how do I do this? At that time I had 2 teenagers and a 3 years old. So it was a challenge.
Yeah.
You do it, like every day you get up and you do it, and you find, even if it's just a little fragment of the day, for yourself, you just do it. And then that fragment at the end of the week, it becomes pretty substantial amount of time that you have dedicated to yourself. So how I did it, you know, I bring my kid to school. I kept on driving in front of this gallery, and it was advertising some photography group workshop. And I kept on going every day, and I looked at it and I said, one day, not today, tomorrow. Until one day I was like, that's it. I went home and I made the call. And that's how I joined this group of photographers that is led by an amazing woman, which later became my mentor. And that's how I started the journey again. Actually, when I first joined the group, not even after a few weeks, I went to see her. I was like, I can't do this. It's too hard. There's too much to do. I don't know. And she told me, you just show up. I said, don't worry, no pressure. Just show up. Just come and join us. And that's what I did. And that's when the first body of work started to develop, the Out of Shadow, which is the journey of a woman coming out of her own shadow that she created or was imposed. It depends. Everybody has different experience. And
wow.
Yes, and I had an amazing support.
I love that you had a mentor, that she mentored you. Women must do that for one another. We really, it's so important because, you know, fix each other's crowns, right? We have to be there for each other. And that bit of encouragement, you know, you were able to wake up and say, yes, I can do this. Right. I love that. Do you have any examples? You said you had an example, I believe, of the
Out of the Shadow. So yes, the journey of, this is like, I don't know if you can see, this is the journey of, you know,
a woman coming out of her shadow. Now, what was behind? I know what's behind it, right? Isn't that beautiful? What's the technique that we used here, Debora? Tell me.
So this is pure photography. So when I thought of this body of work, I had a huge canvas built on wheels, and I went in my backyard and I lit it at night, and I started to take hundreds of photos. Of course, I took my kids to help me. Like, my daughter has kind of my same profile. So in some of the photo, it might look like it's me in the shadow, but it's her. So it worked perfectly because, you know, it's like myself with my shadow reflected, but in different position.
Wow.
And I started to shoot, you know, until I came out of the shadow. So I don't know if you can see, you know, like here, but, you know, and I leave it behind me.
So it's really so spectacular and says so much. It captures all of our shadows, Debora. Mm-hmm. It really does. That's my shadow. It's everybody's shadow. I just think it's magnificent.
You know, like in the world where, you know, societal norms and expectation are imposed, or we just live to experience this responsibility that we have. And so you become the mother, the wife, the daughter, and you forget yourself in doing so. Doesn't mean I did not enjoy to be the mother, the wife. I did, but it was just I forgot myself in doing so.
Now let's talk about your husband. You brought him up and you said that he, you know, supported this Out of the Shadow. Would you tell our audience, your husband is an artist. Tell us, for those who don't know, would you please share?
Yes, my husband is Mr. Brainwash. He had an incredible career. He's an amazing person and artist, a genius, I would say.
Oh yeah.
And it's a lot of work to be married to him. So we have a museum in Beverly Hills where he features all his art, and it keeps on going. I mean, my family is a very creative family. We're all in the arts, different medium, but all in the arts. So it's like, you know, a creative environment. And so somebody has to have also feet on the ground, and that's me.
Absolutely, because you were telling me when I was visiting with you, you also help manage his career and the museum, of course, which is quite outstanding. People go visit this museum. And honestly, your footprints are everywhere, Debora. I could feel how you manage the museum. It's got a woman's touch to it, I will say. It's extraordinary work, I will tell you. I was thrilled to be able to meet him with you at the museum. Actually, I believe that it was the opening, or you were showing one of the films that you've worked on, which we will get into. But it is an extraordinary body of work and a lot of work for you to manage. I will say there's also been a film about his work in which you also are in as well. What was that like, making that film?
Well, that was back, in the days that were, it was very hectic. It was very, so many things were happening at the same time.
Right, right.
So it's all in a blur right now. So, but
I'll bet.
through that, it was a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving parts.
And I can only imagine all that's coming at you, right? His career, you've sort of stopped at the time with your career. You're trying to figure out how to get yourself back to where you belong, wherever that might be. You've got kids that you're raising. It's hard, but once again, Debora managed to figure, like all of us, if you just go.
You just go. And I always say, like, do something for yourself. Once a day, sometimes, sometimes, we want to get in shape and it's like, oh my God, I have to go to the gym every day. No, you don't. Just do something a little bit every day. At the end of the week, you have accomplished so much, because we don't see the little step by step. Sometimes we get ourselves overwhelmed with things, right? Or like, oh, I cannot do that. It's going to take too long. But it's not. If you just do a little bit every day, by the end of your week, you have accomplished so much. Just try a couple of weeks and you'll see, and that's how I do it, like for anything, like a little bit, it's like even when we cook, like it doesn't come out all at once, there's step by step, right? And so we take those little steps every day to become the person that we want to be. Or that we want to be.
So Out of the Shadow, was that exhibited anywhere here or elsewhere?
Yes. I have done, the last exhibit was at the Bergamo station.
Mm-hmm.
And there's Out of the Shadow. And then following this journey, a few years later, like about 10 years ago, I developed a new body of work called Landed. Basically, the journey continues in self-discovery, and then I landed in a new environment, in a new world. And how I did that? So by traveling or experience life, I take pictures, I take photos, and then I came back home one day with not warning, just I came back home and I was looking at my photos and I looked at them and I'm like, there's so many photos. I was kind of overwhelmed, like so many.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I need a cutter. So I went to look for a cutter, found a cutter. Then I started to cut the photos, and then I basically shred them and then I recomposed them and I created a new environment. And when I finished, I remember it was until 2 a.m. I stepped back and I was like, what did just happen? And I looked at the photos and I was like, oh, this is where I'm landing. I'm landing in a new environment. I shredded the chaos of my life. I looked at it, recomposed it, and created a new environment according to my feelings, sensation, and experience of that time. And that's how a new world was created.
I believe that you have also examples of that, even right behind you, right over your shoulder.
Oh, yes. You can see behind me.
Now, okay, let's talk to me about how this was put together. That is an extraordinary piece. I just love it.
Yeah, so these are different. This probably is 5 images of New York. I love New York. I go to New York when I can. And so that particular one, I took the photos and I looked at them and I was like, what's with the taxi? Because I do a lot of, this was all the beginning, like a lot of taxi and but that's what was for me at that time when I went to New York and the taxi and that yellow sparkle in the city.
Right.
And I was like, what? I came back with what feelings? And that's like, is the congestion, the people on the street. And that's what I try to represent here.
Yeah. Now, what do? You said you have a cutter. You would cut
Oh
up
yeah,
and,
I have many
you know,
cutters.
yeah.
So
So I
yeah,
guess you go ahead. You tell me. I don't know. So you tell me.
I cut the photos and
Yeah.
then I weave them together and try to, because sometimes they are different photos. So I put them together by merging them together. And so recreating a new environment. Um, like this one, this is Hong Kong. When I went, Hong Kong has this big building and I felt so
Oh yeah.
small. And so these are like 4 photos of building. So cutting and reprint, putting them back together by weaving them. Or another thing that the way I do it is just stripes. I take different photos, I cut them in stripes, and then I reassemble them
like that. Wow.
yeah.
It is just so beautiful, the work. And it's the movement on it is incredible. I feel like I'm moving with the work. I love how you said the other photo that you just held up of Hong Kong, right? How you felt so small, how
Right.
the way you look at the world, and then you bring it into your art. Because when I was at your studio, I saw that and I felt the same thing. You really are able to project this. But what a journey from out of the shadows, and then all of a sudden you've landed.
Right.
And then you got into the world of being a woman's advocate. You got into doing work with other women together. Could you talk to me about We Do It Together, please?
Right. In 2018, I was in Rome with Thierry. We were there to meet. We were going to the Vatican to meet the Pope because we were part of, donating an artwork for his organization that he has to help children, Scola is called. And we were there and in this room waiting for the Pope with other artists. And Chiara Tilesi was there representing another artist. And we were waiting forever for the Pope. It was hot. It was, so somehow she was put next to me at one point. And so we started to talk. Italian people, they just like, hey, what's your name? I'm this. Oh, do you want to be friends? I remember growing up. My mom would take us to the beach and it was like tons of kids playing together. It's very easy to make friends, right, in Italy. So anyway, we started to talk and then after, meeting with the Pope, we were all a group of people that kept on being together for those 3-4 days. And so she talked to me about her nonprofit, We Do It Together, which is a film production company to empower women. And when we came back to LA, we stayed in touch, and then we started to work on projects together. And I'm on the board of director, and we are working. We're working together to basically send a message of empowerment for women. About a year ago, the UN made a study that it would take 300 years to reach gender parity if we don't do anything right now. So our work, we hope to bring awareness. And so we have done a movie called Tell It Like a Woman, which was nominated for the Oscar for Best Original Song.
Incredible.
Yes, and then we did a documentary called One of Us, which is the journey of 4 Italian women coming to America. And then now we are doing an I Am campaign, which is a series of photo with a very bold statement of who I am. So mine is I am courageous, but many women, I am a dreamer. That's the statement of Chiara. I am a dreamer, I am relentless, I am powerful, I'm inspiring, so many. And we launched it last year in Times Square at the NASDAQ, in collaboration with NASDAQ. And this year for Women International Day, on March 8th, it was projected in Turin, and then the Fontana di Trevi in Rome.
Yeah.
And now we are, this campaign will travel the world. It's going to be more cities in Italy and in France and Brazil, and we're continuing.
Yeah, and of course it was screened here in Los Angeles. It was really actually at the Mr. Brainwash Museum. That was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for us to see that. It was really pretty terrific. Do you have a lot of say? I mean, I guess there's so many women, I can't even imagine, that you could highlight in these films, right?
Yes, but this is a joint together. It's not just the women against the men, or it's not that. It's just really joining force together.
Yeah,
Women and men, we have to do it together. That's the purpose of the campaign. This is the purpose of the nonprofit. This is what we all have. We all have to get together and bring awareness.
As you see that, it's so difficult for so many, depending upon where they're living, right? We're fortunate here in America, even if times are changing. We have to be diligent to make sure that, everything that we have fought for remains and continues to grow for women. But I'm sure you've traveled places where women have, as I have, very, very little rights at all. They're covered. And how does that sort of play into what you do, your art, your film, your women's advocacy?
Well, look, for example, we have written a book. There is a book that this is in Italy, it came out in Italy. It's called Guarda come una donna, which means the gaze of a woman. And so there are 50, I did the photo, I did the cover, and there's
incredible
inside also. But there are 15 women, and they all tell about their story, where they're coming from. There's a woman from Afghanistan when she left, the Taliban regime. There's an anthropologist. There's very interesting stories inside. And actually, this book has been taken as a textbook in a few universities in Italy. So this is the work that we do, and that we hope to impact, people out there, and to be inspired, and to come and join us, and to continue this awareness.
As you go about your day, you've done these incredible campaigns and exhibits, the book, the films, you travel, you're still managing your husband's work. You've got the 3 children, and your children, as you said, are also in the arts and incredibly talented as well. How do you find time for yourself, and what do you think about each day, about your next project, or time for Debora? Tell me.
Right. So, my kids now are adult.
Yeah.
Which is a great relationship that we have. And that has given me so much more time to dedicate to myself. Definitely, I still have to steal the time for myself, but I do it. I stay committed to myself. So I became the other person that needs to be taken care of. And that's how I do it. So, because there's also their career. But our relationship has changed. It's not anymore the kids that you have to take to school, that you have to provide. So it's a different relationship, but that gives me more time. And I was thinking about this morning. It's like, because people ask me, when do you do that? I said, I thought this morning, it's like, after so much work, 3 kids, the husband, the house, the family, my family in Italy, and my mom is going through some health scare right now, so there's a lot. When there's no more the part of, the kids, raising the kids. And when that part, it's less right now, that's when I come in. I'm my own child. So now I have to take care of myself. And that's where I'm obliged to find myself time for myself.
That's great. I was going to ask you, is there a particular time of day, where you say, no matter what, 5 a.m, it's for me, or you just feel it and find the time?
Yeah, well, mostly it's the night. Mostly it's the night because it's quiet. Weekends, during the day, I love to be in my studio. Mornings, I walk every morning. Every morning, 6 o'clock, I'm out there. I walk 3.5 miles around the Hollywood Reservoir, which is beautiful. And that's meditation, it's connecting with nature. And that's what fuels my day.
Yeah.
And throughout the day, there's so much going on. And then during the night, it's like toward the evening and, the night, it comes back to me.
I agree. That time alone, especially out in nature, is incredibly meditative. It helps me as well. I love to hike as well. And I go to the beach because there's nothing more soothing for me than the waves. And then all of a sudden I can suddenly think and I can create. But I need that space of alone time to do that. But like you, I love New York. I was born back east, so I love it. I get so inspired by the city. It's incredible to me. What else inspires you? So you love nature. What else does it for you? And also, if you want to talk about some of the other mentors, you mentioned one. Would you?
What inspires me is, I am a very private person, and I need to have the time for myself.
Yeah.
And that's where I sit with myself and think. I think a lot. Sometimes overthinker, but there's, I put something in my head and I struggle with, I go walk. And then from there, I just think about it, and I think about ways to solve it. What would I do? Or how I would approach something, or I'm very visual. So when I close my eyes, it doesn't go blank. It goes everywhere. My imagination starts to go. I see so much when I close my eyes. And so it's enough for me to sit in my studio and I close my eyes and I was like, okay, how do I see? Because some of my work, I already see them created.
Yeah.
So
oh, wow.
I see the end of it. And so when I see the image, I'm like, how do I get there? And I have to go back for the process to happen. Sometimes it's backward. Or I have an idea, like one time I was traveling, I was looking outside, I was on the plane and I was looking at the airport, and I'm looking all these lines that they are, and before
on the runway, yeah.
Right. And it came to my head, like I had the pictures, like, oh yes, I see that. Okay, how am I gonna go to that vision? And so I started to take photo before the plane took off, and then I developed something. Unfortunately, I cannot show it. It's over there, one of the last pieces over there, and it's no entry, re-entry. I play with the words, and then I put all the lines together. So that's how it happens. So it could happen in any moment. Like I could talk, well, right now I'm just concentrating talking to you, but like sometimes I can talk to people and they say a word and it comes into my head and I'm like, oh, there's something. And then I go back to that later on. So it could be, inspiration could come from literally anywhere. It could be at the market. There's one last piece that I did. I don't have it here because right now I do a lot of pieces with nature, abstract, a little bit different. But I was in the market and I took a photo of their Japanese herbs, which they look like leaves. It was very interesting. And then I was like, I saw something, but I didn't know what it was. Texture was green and little red string that were holding together. And then I came home and one day I was like, I need some inspiration. Then I look at my photos. It's like, what did I do? And then I found this one. I go, oh, this is interesting. And then I started to cut it and I recompose it. And I was like, whoa, what did just happen? So I was at the market that day. I was shopping for, I think it was one of the holidays. I don't remember.
I love that. Also, at your studio, you look outside and there's a garden. And I found that very inspiring. I know that you also love to plant, right? Which is really kind of neat. And I thought, now, see, I'm also very visual. And as you're explaining this to me, being at the market, I'm picturing it myself. And then I'm seeing an entire exhibit based on all of this. I can see it: fruits, vegetables, herbs, by Debora. Right? I love it. I really, but that's the mind of an artist. You see something, you're on a plane, and boom, you're at the market. You see something, and that's what it is. It's really kind of a neat thing, and you don't have to be an artist to have that happen to you. I always like to say to people, just be open.
Absolutely.
Right? Tell me, because there's an artist in all of
we're
it.
all creative. Everybody's creative. We don't realize, because when you say artist, people think, oh, I cannot be an artist. I don't know how to draw.
Exactly.
It's not limited to drawing and painting. And artists are like, you get up in the morning, you have to make certain choices, right? For example, you need to get dressed. You're going to pick your shirt, your pants, and your colors. You're putting things together. That's a form of creation. That's a form of art also, the way we dress, what we pick, what we choose, But people don't see it that way. And there's not a lot of value given to the arts. What I mean, not a lot of encouragement. Because even some parents are still like, oh, art won't get you anywhere, or not a very prolific job, and we should come out of this belief. And I think everybody needs that in their lives, a form of creating, a form of art. You don't need to be, Picasso or Michelangelo or know how to draw. There's a form of expression in everything we do every day. And therefore, we should really spend the time to find it and to experience it.
Let's talk about women in the arts. The percentage of women that are out there, female exhibits, right? Talk about women in filmmaking as directors, as producers. It's increasing, but we have a ways to go, right? What would you like to say about that?
Yeah, we have a long way to go. That's a long way to go. So in the arts, it's very interesting because in the arts, the percentage of women attending art school is higher than male. So female percentage is higher than male. But in the art world, the representation of women is less than men. So women in museum, in galleries, it's really lower, and way lower than men. Same for the film industry. Yes, it is getting there, but we're very far from being where we should be, or at least to be somewhere close, even. There should be more, there should be more interest and more of a push in letting the women thrive and be considered. The woman is more the object in the art because she's represented, right?
Right.
And so we really need to become more of the subject.
I always say the way to do it is, if we can get the funding, right? We have to lend money
Absolutely.
has to be female centric. Open a gallery if you're a woman, and feature, female artists, not primarily female, but we have to do it for each other, or we have to do it together, right?
We have to do it together. Yes. And we need it, women should really it. What also sometimes people ask me, what would be my advice? And I found it very powerful to join groups of the one that I joined. I still go, my photography group is so inspirational. It's so important. And these groups, you grow together, and they're very important also because they give you a certain accountability. When you meet together, you know that every week you're going to meet together. It's like a book club or any club.
Yeah.
I think these are very important because they really make you accountable for what you have to bring in. And so it's an extra push for you to do something for yourself.
And another one, which is important to me, very important to me, is women and aging. Thank goodness, I believe A lot of those rules have been broken. And it's because of people like us, right? We're out there doing what we love to do. And it doesn't matter to me if we're over 40, 50, 80, 90. Look at Grandma Moses. I'm sure you know her as an artist. I don't think she started until she was in her 70s or 80s. There's no ceiling on age. I'm a big believer in that.
Me
You
too.
as well, I'm sure, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's always time to reinvent yourself. There's always
Well,
time to, I still say, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up. But I'm like, you still have time. And you should
well,
think about it.
look at your artwork. It wouldn't have been there if you didn't have time to reflect and think about your life and the paths that you walked. And because of that, you created the art you did. I think our best work is in front of us and not really behind us, don't you?
Right, right. But we are very affected by the society norms. It's like, I remember when I got pregnant with my youngest was 36. I was 36, and my mom said, aren't we a little bit too old to have babies? I'm like, Mom, no, like, what is this, But there's because it's the construction that you put yourself, because the society imposes you. And I was like, no, there's not restriction in anything. Don't put restriction up on yourself. And there shouldn't be,
Yeah, I mean, I put them on myself rather. I mean, right? I mean, sometimes if I don't feel right, I maybe will turn down an invitation, and my husband will say, "Absolutely not, go." And I am one who will hide because I'm also very private, right? And it takes a lot for me to come out to people. I think because the same reason I look at things a certain way, and I think, oh, and then my mind goes someplace else because I'm thinking about what I was looking at, and you get lost in that world. But that's the gift, right, of being a woman, of being an artist, which is a broad word, of living long enough to be able to do that. So I want to encourage women. Look what you've done to encourage me, for example, and I hope I'm encouraging somebody else to tell their story and keep going. In fact, what's next? Go ahead, please.
No, absolutely. You just have to keep going. I mean, I know it's like, it's kind of a cliche of a word, like just keep going, like keep smiling, keep going. No, but this is meant for you to really just do anything, like even a little thing for yourself. And just don't look at, any restriction that are imposed that you think you need to say, oh, I cannot do it because I'm too old, or I'm not talented, or I'm not, those are just all the, what we receive from the society, but they shouldn't apply to you, and just ignore it. Just become deaf to that and just keep going.
So what is next for you? What are you working on next that you're able to talk about? Whether it's your own or with a group, anything with your family you want to share with us? Because again, I know you're very private. By the way, thank you for coming on our show, because I know you don't do this all the time, and I really appreciate that you trusted me to share your story with our audience.
Yeah, I do trust you. I'm extremely private. This is another part of my journey. And if you want to communicate at one point, you gotta be in front of the camera, not behind the camera, So this is something else, but these are all little steps that anybody have to take. And I put it up on myself this year that I will make the effort, because this is part of my own growth. It's very difficult to expose yourself. Very delicate. Also, where I'm coming from, and the life that I have, and it's I like to. I'm very, very private. So in the future, for this year, there are a lot of projects I'm working on, because I put it up on myself. I'm here in front of the camera now and telling you that yes, there are probably 3 events that I'm working on for my art. Then we have the I Am campaign with Chiara. There's a movie also in the making. There is a documentary that I'm working on. There is another book cover that I'm doing, actually 2. I'm busy.
You're busy. You say you're really private, and I told you I am as well. sometimes I wonder if that comes from, trauma that so many of us may have experienced at a very young age and didn't really want to talk about. Therefore, we became private as adults, and it takes time to really be able to understand that in a way, various traumas, whatever that may be, a divorce, it could be anything. And I think that really lends itself to having somebody be very private. They don't want people to know. They don't want to share the pain.
Right.
But look what ends up happening. We become writers, artists, interviewers, documentary makers, and it makes for some of the best stuff out there, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Definitely when we are hurt, we tend to close within ourselves, but we need the support of others. But that could probably influence us to just step away from, all the noise out there, because you just need time for yourself. Definitely, definitely divorce of my parents was very impactful to my life. And I always was the good girl, was good in school, but I had my brothers that gave a hard time to my mom. So I needed to be good for her. I didn't want to add to her plate. And so somehow I kind of, I kind of closed myself to what I was going through. I mean, any experience shapes us. So
absolutely. So let's end on something kind of fun, which I often thought about, and I asked you about when I was visiting your studio, Medici, right? First of all, you look like the Mona Lisa. I'm sure you've been told that before, right? You really do. And then I posted a picture of us on my social media, and a lot of my friends said, "Oh, you look like cousins." I said, "Oh my gosh." I was so honored. I thought, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful. Really? I was so thrilled. But to me, you look like the Mona Lisa. But the name Medici, please, are you related to the Medici family in Italy?
So my grandpa, Nonno Silvio, he was proud to be the 9th generation of Cosimo de' Medici. He was my brothers and I, we never really digged into that, but we only have memories of him talking about it. And so we left it like that, like maybe we are.
Maybe we are. Beautiful answer. I love that. Debora, I so enjoyed talking to you. If there's anything else you want to tell our audience, how they can find your art, how they can find out more about you, and anything else you want to share before I let you go.
Well, this is like, I have an Instagram, Debora Guetta, and a website, Debora Medici-Guetta. I'm not very involved in the social media, which that's another step forward to my journey, to be more involved. And but this will be my connecting point. And hopefully when I have my next show, everybody can come.
Oh, we look forward to that so much, Debora. Thank you so much for sharing your time, your story. I really, really enjoyed it, and I look forward to many more. So, everybody, you can find our interview with Debora over on our social media pages, YouTube, on Facebook. Then we cut promos, and we will sprinkle them throughout the weeks and even months about Debora and her story and her journey. And also we are an audio podcast as well. We're on the iHeartRadio app and just about anywhere that you get your podcasts. Look up Debora Cobalt Live or look up the Little Italy podcast, and you'll find my interview with Debora. Also go on her website to learn more about her work. I thank you all for joining us. Please share our interview with your friends, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.